Good morning. Welcome to the program Fire of Elijah. I'm your host, Les Patton. Well, I wanted to share with you today, a lot of you who listen probably wonder where I came from and maybe even wonder about my own salvation, my own testimony, I should say. And you can find that on my website, fireofelijah.org. And I thought I would share my testimony and how I came to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. As a child, my mother led me in the sinner's prayer at a young age. I went to Sunday school and church with my mom, but my dad wouldn't go. As a kid growing up, I fought with my friends. I was picked on. I was very bad at sports and many times did not feel acceptance. I had gone to Christian school for 2.5 years. I found out that Christian school kids were just as relentless as the public school kids. From 1974 to February of 1977, I went there to a Christian school. And when I decided to drop out of the Christian school and go back to the public school, my mother-in-law and I went to Sunday school and church on the Sunday afterwards, only to find out that the kids and the parents, not all of them, but some of them had decided to shun me. I've heard one of the mothers whisper to their child to stay away from him. So I felt shunned by Christians. I felt rejection by Christians. And shortly after that, probably within a year, if that, maybe not even that long, I told my parents I was not going to church anymore. By this time, I was a teenager, probably about 13, 14 years old, and I decided I wanted no more part of it. As far as I was concerned, the Christians were nothing but hypocrites, and I felt no acceptance at all from anyone. I was bad in sports, and I wasn't one of the smart kids. Now let me stop there. I wasn't the special ed class either, but I would say I was average. I wasn't the A student. I was the one that was picked last in gym class, we'll say. And even the Christian kids hated me. I mean. Now, I had some friends, some acquaintances. I'm not saying that every last person I met, but most of the kids, I would say in my childhood, either did not like me or they, or some did, but then depended on who was around them. But I never really, I really never had any really good, close friends. I developed a distrust of everybody by about the time I was 15. But then I had one good friend named Bob. He treated me very good. He stood up for me if somebody picked on me. And then I started to drift away from childhood friends then. In the fall of 1979, at the age of 15, my new best friend, or BFF as we say today, and one of my childhood friends, introduced me to a brand new friend, and that brand new friend was marijuana. I started smoking pot, started drinking. Now, please take note, once in a while, as a kid, I sipped on my, I would get a little half a glass of beer or something like that. And it's not to say anything about my father, it is what it is, but what I really mean is I meant really getting drunk. The first time I got drunk is when I was 15, when we went to a party and I had whiskey and I had beer. I started smoking cigarettes. I started smoking pot. A year later, in 1980, after saying I would never go any farther than smoking pot or cigarettes or drinking, I decided to take speed and try LSD for the first time. And a few years later, I was hooked on crystal meth. But it was all right. Finally, I had friends. Finally, I had acceptance. I had a lot of friends. I had plenty of them. Life seemed great. I didn't have to worry about the people in my past. I didn't have to worry about those kids in school who rejected me and didn't like me. And life was great and no one was going to hurt me again. Thing is, those people I hung out with were doing things to hurt me too. I just was too stupid and blind to see it at the time. But if anything hurt me, it was the 6 to 12 beers. The pot and acid would make it better. 6 to 12 beers in one night. Shoot, if I've thought at one time a day was wasted if I didn't get high on anything. Heck, even a good resin hits from a bowl sounded good. And if you don't know what a chamber bowl is, it's a marijuana pipe. So I got to the point to where I had to be high on something, and I didn't care what it was, and I didn't care how I took it in. But I felt like I had friends. I felt like I had acceptance. Then I found out some of my wonderful new friends were using me, stealing from me. I got into trouble with the law. I was put on probation. I decided to hang out with more responsible people. Hey, I felt responsible. At least I had a job and went to work sober most of the time. But God has protected me from many things. I realize now anything from stabbing myself in the arm and throwing a coffee table at my friends after drinking a fifth of vodka, chased with diet pills. I now realize with those things, and I'm not going to get into details, but I realize at that point God was protecting me. I realize even at that point and other times in my life when I came home and found the car parked on a 45-degree angle, that God protected me. I found out that having a DUI was God's way of protecting me, because even though I still went out and drove drunk, high, or whatever, at least it caused me to slow down a bit. While I was living this kind of life, what I learned about Christ still rang in the back of my mind. Drinking fifths of Mad Dog 2020 malt liquor and doing drugs after a while just did not seem to fill that void. There was still loneliness, depression, anger, thoughts of suicide, worthlessness, etc. About the time the first Gulf War started, I feeling drawn to Bible prophecy. I understood some of it from my childhood teachings. I started to think, what if? What if this Bible stuff was right and I was wrong? Then I thought, if only I met a woman and could get married, certainly that would make life better. That would certainly take it away. So out of lust, I met a woman that was much more older than me. I'm not going to say how much, but a substantial amount. But then we got married, and in 1994 she got terminal cancer. Life was, again, not good at that point. Before that, there was no real satisfaction in the marriage. We fought, but then a few months before she died, she passed away. Now, at that time, let me back the clock up there. I said a few months earlier, before my first wife passed away, I was still working. I was working at Walmart. Her and I both worked there. That's not where I met her, but that's a whole other story. It's at Walmart that I met a man named Mike. Mike was always so pleasant. He always asked how I was. He always treated me with respect. Something was different. Then one day I met his dad when I was working at the garden center at Walmart. I found out at that point Mike's dad was a pastor. I thought, wow, a Christian that actually acted like a Christian. This was different. This was different than what I was used to. Around that time, I started asking questions about Bible prophecy. Mike suggested I read Matthew 24. And when I did, I was like, wow, it was almost like watching the news. At that time, I was a CNN junkie. Of course, Fox News didn't exist, so I watched CNN like kids would watch MTV. I didn't ask about going to church. Then one night, I went on a Wednesday night with my wife. We asked Mike if him and his dad could come over for a visit. I knew at this point it was time to get saved. I had to forgive